This video is about what is a case, what do we mean by a case in social science research terms. This is an interesting topic, and I notice lots of researchers often talk about not being able to define case studies and the difficulties behind that, and the use of case studies in research in general without a firm grasp of what is meant by a case and the theories or methodologies behind the use of case studies. So if you are in this category, welcome. This video could be useful for you because the material for this video is from a relevant book about case studies called What is a Case? Exploring the Foundations of Social Inquiry, which I included in this slide. And the material for this video and the concerning chapter, or the chapter that you could refer to, is called Cases of What is a Case by Ragin, and it's the first chapter of the book. So let's start with why there are different definitions of case studies to give you some appreciation of this topic or the subject. To start with, and at a minimum, every study can be considered a case study because you are analyzing social phenomena particular to time and place. Let's take the example of a survey that got mentioned in this first chapter by Ragin. Let's take an example of a survey of a sample of people in the US. You can make statements here about the people being surveyed, about the US, the United States, and also a range of units in between these two poles, like, for example, communities, cities, social classes, individuals, and so on. So a study like this survey can be perceived as an extensive analysis of lots of cases of people and as an intensive case study of the United States at the same time. Another way to look at it is that the US can be perceived as a case in several different senses. So that's one reason for having different definitions of a case. Let's look at another reason, how you present that is the results. That's another reason. Researchers can present both empirical cases and theoretical cases, and these different cases may also vary by level into nested or hierarchies, and they may differ in specificity. Also, empirical data can be constructed into different substantive cases. So when asked, what is a case? Social scientists normally give different answers, often with it depends. A case may be theoretical, it may be empirical, or it may be both. It may be a bounded object or a process. It may be generic and universal, or it may be specific in some way. So Ragin discussed how individual social scientists answer the question, what is a case? In totally different ways, and that the answer to this question influence the conduct and also the results of the research. In general, social scientists agree that, and I quote here, cases may be multiple in a given piece of research. What the case is may change both in the hands of the researcher, that is during the course of the research and when the results are presented, and in the hands of the researcher's audience, to give you an idea and appreciation of why it's such a contested topic. And this quote is from page 8 of chapter 1 by Ragin. To understand these differences, Ragin argues in this chapter that we need to consider how cases are conceived as empirical units or theoretical constructs, and second, as general or specific. So let's take the first dichotomy. It overlaps with philosophical distinction between realism and nominalism. In terms of realists, they believe cases are empirically verifiable and out there. On the other hand, nominalists see cases as theoretical constructs or categories that are there to serve the investigator's interests. So realists see cases as a given or empirically discoverable, while nominalists conceive cases as consequences of theories and conventions. Then there is the second dichotomy, whether the question of cases involves cases are conceived as general, for example, individuals, families, cities, and so on, and external to how research is conducted, or are cases conceived as specific, like, for example, the oligarchic personality and developed in the course of research through, say, interviews, historical research, and so on. In research, generic units tend to be treated as cases with case categories used, like, say, cities are neither found not that they come from the course of the research. They are there and are considered valid units by social scientists. On the contrary, specific case categories emerge or are designated in the course or during the course of the research itself. So what the topic is a case of is not known until after empirical data are collected. So these two dichotomies are really important to understand, and you can rewind to hear me talk about and explain why we need to know about these dichotomies in terms of trying to, or when you're trying to conceive cases. Now, to help you answer the question of what is a case, and based on the two dichotomies I just discussed, you can use the following fourfold division of case conceptions to give you an idea of how researchers conceive cases in research. So 1, cases are found. Here, cases are considered as empirically real and bounded, but specific. Cases should be identified and established during the research, during your research journey. So here, the assessment of the empirical bounding of, say, a case becomes a key part of the research process, according to the researchers. An example of this is when a researcher sets an empirical boundary on various historical world systems in order to study human societies and understand the history of human social organization. Here, the empirical boundaries are considered verifiable through evidence. In the example I just talked about, of studying social organization, verification could come from evidence of trade between people of different cultures. So this is first. The first quadrant, if you like, of a way to help you answer the question of what is a case. Let's take the second one that is included, that you could see on this slide. Cases are objects. Here, cases are also viewed as empirically real and bounded, but with no need to verify their existence or establish their empirical boundaries during the research process. So researchers here see cases as general and conventional. Case designations are based on current or existing definitions in the literature. For example, someone who wants to explain international inequality, say, would accept nation states in its conventional definition as valid cases for their analysis. Let's talk about the third quadrant included on this slide, which is that cases are made. Here, the cases take shape during the research process. They are seen as specific theoretical constructs and are neither given or empirical, but tend to be gradually imposed on empirical evidence. For example, a researcher wanting to understand what tyranny is would look at different instances of tyranny, and this may lead them to identify subset of instances with common traits which are conceived as cases. So when you start, it may not be clear to you that a case will occur during, that is during the research process. So interaction between ideas and evidence leads to a gradual definition of cases viewed as theoretical categories or constructs. And then we've got the final, the fourth quadrant, which is cases are conventions or conceived as conventions. So this final conception of cases involves viewing them as general theoretical constructs, but with the view that these conceptions are the products of collective scholarly work and interaction. For this reason, external to any specific research effort. So in other words, cases are considered general theoretical constructs that structure ways of seeing social life and doing social science. They are products of social scientists over time. As a result, cases may shift over time from reconstruction of work or other evidence. So these are the 4 ways you can conceptualize cases, but keep in mind that these categories are not absolute. This is what Ragin discussed. The point here is not to establish boundaries, as the author Ragin put it, but to offer a map, a conceptual map that links different approaches to the question of what is a case. So hopefully this video gave you an appreciation, an idea of what is a case for social scientists. If you are a social scientist trying to do case study research, this video is for you. And definitely check out the chapter 1, which I used to to build up the material for this video, and also look at the 4 different possible ways to help you answer the question of what is a case and how to conceptualize cases.